morning. Welcome to Unity on the North Shore Sunday service. Whether here in person, joining us virtually on Zoom, or watching later on social media, we are so glad you're with us here this morning. I am Mike Nash. I'm your worship assistant this morning. Sharon Myers will be our prayer chaplain. Our musicians today are Callie Ungelson and Danny Bauer. And Rev Kurt will be giving the message and the meditation. So let us begin with prayer. I invite you to just relax, become centered. Holy Presence, we know that in God we can never be separate from love, from truth, from infinite intelligence and the source of all good. We gather here in this sacred time to open our hearts and minds to the one power and the one presence. We gratefully receive the energies of divine light and love pouring in and through us. And we affirm we are here this morning for a divine purpose. We trust that that purpose is now being fulfilled, for we know we are now in the presence of pure being, immersed in the Holy Spirit of life, love, and wisdom. And so it is. Amen. Now Cal and Danny will lead us in our opening song.
You think you own whatever land you land on. The earth is just some dead thing you can claim. But I know every rock and tree and creature has a life, has a spirit, has a name. You think the only people who are people are the people who look and think like you. But if you walk the footsteps of a stranger, you learn things you never knew, you never knew. Have you ever heard the wolf cry to a blue corn moon, or ask the grinning bobcat why he grinned? Can you sing with all the voices of the mountain? Can you paint with all the colors of the wind? Can you paint with all the colors of the wind? Come run the hidden pine trails of the forest. Come taste the sun-sweet berries of the earth. Come roll in all the riches all around you. And for once, never wonder what they're worth. The rainstorm and the river are my brothers. The heron and the otter are my friends. And we are all connected to each other in a circle, in a hoop that never ends. How high does the sycamore grow? If you cut it down, then you'll never know. And you'll never hear the wolf cry to the blue corn moon. For whether we are white or copper-skinned, you need to sing with all the voices of the mountain. You need to paint with all the colors of the wind. You can own the earth and still all you'll own is earth until you can paint with all colors of the wind.
Thank you, Kale and Danny, for that beautiful song. Unity is a positive, practical approach for spiritual living, based on the teachings of Jesus and the power of prayer. We believe there is truth and beauty in every spiritual tradition, and we honor the many paths to the one God. Wherever you are on your journey of faith, you are always welcome here with us. Our purpose is to create a safe space where people are empowered to take risks and live their deepest truth. If this is your first Sunday, we extend a loving welcome. Many of us were surprised to learn there was a spiritual community that thought and believed the same things we did. It felt like coming home. We hope your experience this morning is powerful and that you will return. And now Cal and Danny will lead us in our group song.
This is the day that the Lord has made, that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. Before you go, this is the week that there's no defeat. There is no defeat. We will rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. This is the week, there is no defeat. We will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the week, there is no defeat. This is the month of the Lord's triumph, of the Lord's triumph. We will rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. This is the month of the Lord's triumph. We will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the month of the Lord's triumph. This is the year, peace and love appear, peace and love appear. We will rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. This is the year, peace and love appear. We will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the year, peace and love appear.
Now Sharon Myers will lead us in the daily word.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sharon. I'm your prayer chaplain today in person, and also on in the back of the sanctuary if you are here in person. I have to say I've been on the road for about a month, and there is something just really lovely about being here with other people in person. So if you have the chance and you're listening in and you'd like to join us in this way, it really does make a difference. So thank you, everyone, for letting me do this. The daily word today is pray for others. As I pray, I affirm the activity of God in your life and in mine. I am honored by the trust of those who ask me to pray with them. Whenever I'm asked to pray about my responsibilities, it is always the same in my recognition and my response. If I've been asked to pray for healing, I release all thoughts of illness. I affirm divine life is active in every cell. I see harmony and perfect function restored. If I'd asked for abundance in prayer, I entertain no thought of lack. I affirm the wisdom, love, and understanding pulsing through those people I pray with and pray for. I affirm truth for all those who have asked for prayer, and my awareness of God's activity in my life increases also. And from the Bible, beloved, I pray that you will all be well and you will all be restored in good health and in your life and in your soul. And that's 3 John 1:2. Now, if you just center yourselves and perhaps close your eyes as we rest in this silence, holding in prayer for yourself and your loved ones and for this world. So let's breathe in health and wellness, mind, body, and soul. And let's breathe out disharmony and discord and disconnect and dis-ease. Breathe in again, health and wellness. And breathe out, no longer that serves you, no longer those that serve us. In affirmative prayer, now let's hold ourselves and all those suffering worldwide and affirm the presence of God's love, grace, and guidance in every prayer and in every human condition. And so it is. Amen.
There's a place I go to where no one knows me. It's not lonely, it's a necessary thing. It's a place I'm made of, find out what I'm made of. The nights I stayed up, counting stars and fighting sleep. Let it wash over me, I'm ready to lose my feet. Take it on to the place where one reveals life's mysteries. Steady on down the line, lose all sense of time. Take it all in, wake up that small part of me. Day to day I'm blind to see and find how far to go. Everybody's got their reasons, everybody's got their ways. We're just catching and releasing what builds up throughout the day. Gets into your body and it flows right through your blood. We can tell each other secrets and remember how to love. Da-da-dum, da-dum, dum. Da 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 da, da 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 da, da 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 da, da 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 da, da 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 da. There's a place I'm going where no one knows me. If I breathe real slowly, let it out and let it in. It can be terrifying to be slowly dying, but also clarifying to end where we begin. Let it wash over me, I'm ready to lose my feet. Take me on to the place where one reveals life's mysteries. Steady on down the line, lose all sense of time. Take it all in, wake up that small part of me. Day to day I'm blind to see and find how far to go. Everybody's got their reasons, everybody's got their ways. I'm just catching and releasing what builds up throughout the day. It gets into your body and it flows right through your blood. We can tell each other secrets and remember how to love. Everybody's got their reasons, everybody's got their ways. We're just catching and releasing what builds up throughout the day. It gets into your body and it flows right through your blood. We can tell each other secrets and remember how to love. Da-da-dum-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. Sing it with me. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. Just voices. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. There you go. Da-da-da-da. Nice. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da.
Wow, cool selection, thank you. You all sound great. This moves me into a whole other space, right? That recognition that we are greater together, that there is a sense of oneness that binds us. Which, appropriately enough, is kind of what we're talking about today. I began a new series last week. I think I'm calling it, is it not on? I have a green light. Shall I use this? Check, check. No signal, use the lectern. Okay, there we go. Oh, wow, I'm not used to this. I'll have to stand still, guys. So we started a new series last week, and I think I decided I was going to call it Guiding Lights. And essentially, it's arisen out of a bunch of work that the Board of Trustees have been doing for the last year and a half or so. We've wanted, as we move through these uncertain times, we've got lots of decisions to be making about who we are and how we're going to be meeting together and eventually where we're going to be meeting. And so we really wanted to be able to anchor in what our priorities, what are the dynamics that are really vibrant and alive in this community, and have those top of mind so that as we make choices about programming and about spaces and about how we're going to meet together, that we have a real sense of what that looks like. And so last week, the first of we came up with 5, we don't know whether we're calling them rivers or pillars, but they're basically dynamics that we've identified as being Check, check, test. There we are, okay? So 5 qualities that we've identified as a part of this community that are really sort of in our DNA. So it's not aspirational. These aren't things that we want to become or that we're aspiring to live up to. They're qualities that we have identified as already active and alive here. And we want to make sure that we're building on those as we create a kind of new future together coming out of all the changes that we've had over the last couple of years. So last week, the first of those that we talked about was the power of connection and community. That what we identified was this group likes to be together. And even though we've got to do some of that virtually, and we're making those kind of adaptations, that as we come together in spaces where we can really develop deeper connections with one another, with folks of like mind, that's a priority for us. And so we want to make sure that we're creating those kinds of experience. Sharon, I love that you invited people to come here and be in person. Last week, we had the first of what's going to be a monthly occurrence. We're calling it Sanctuary Sundays, and really encouraging people who are maybe at home and just, some days you wake up and you think, I just want my coffee and I'll open my laptop and I'll be there. But one Sunday a month, third Sunday of the month, we're really going to encourage you to come on in and reconnect with folks here. We've got some new people. There are some folks you've known before, and it's a really time to just enjoy a meal together and get to know one another more deeply. So that's sort of an example of when we're talking about creating programming that supports this value that we hold for connection. That's an example of how it gets embodied. And the board, as we move forward in the year in our planning, we're wanting to make sure that these 5 qualities that we've identified are sort of woven through, that it's a part of everything that we're doing when we're together. So these 5 weeks, I'm going to be exploring one of those dynamics each week. So last week was about community connection. I think one of the takeaways was I asked you to go away and really be mindful about connecting with people that maybe cross your mind, but otherwise you might move on with your day. Send them a text, drop them a note, but start to remind yourself that you're part of a greater community. Sometimes, especially in the environment that we've been living, we can sort of forget that there are a whole lot of folks in our circle that would be happy to support us and would be grateful and delighted to hear from us if we but take the time to do that. So that was sort of an encouragement from last week, and know that we're going to be incorporating that as a board and as a leadership team into how we're meeting together and what we're doing together. This week, I want to talk about one of the other qualities that we've identified as really important in Unity on the North Shore. And I'm really delighted by this one because it's actually a quality that's sort of embedded in the very roots of Unity from early on. And it's this idea that we're a community that really supports healing and wholeness. That we come together, that we offer experiences where we can identify that more deeply, that we allow space for a greater exploration of how it is we can deepen our understanding of who we are, which I love that song. I think that's a piece of what we're doing. We have this still small voice in the back that sometimes suggests that, there's another way to approach that. There's a greater way for me to show up. There's a greater way for me to express my divinity, that we are more than our daily activities and the words we speak and the stuff we do and the things we have, right? And so to be able to sort of move into a space where we are healing and reminding ourselves that that's a part of our wholeness, that that's the real truth of who we've become. Those of you who have been around Unity long, or maybe not even that long at all, know the story of our origins, that really the Unity teachings arose out of Myrtle Fillmore, our co-founder's experience with tuberculosis. And she discovered I can now switch to my other microphone. I probably have to stop. Oh, wow, that's magic. Now I can walk around and come get y'all. So Myrtle Fillmore healed herself of tuberculosis by really deeply immersing herself in a practice where she was reminding herself that she is greater than the symptoms she was experiencing, that she is a child of God, made in perfect wholeness and completeness, and she did not inherit sickness. And she spent hours and hours and hours sort of reminding herself, forgiving herself for ever believing the false beliefs about being in a diseased body, right? So she went through a forgiveness process and really renewed herself to a point that she healed tuberculosis, which was, back in the day, pretty remarkable, almost miraculous, we might say. And then Charles, of course, had his own healing story. He didn't come at it quite as intuitively as Myrtle did. Myrtle sort of sat in silence, and I think we always refer to Myrtle as the mother of Unity, sort of the divine, feminine, and intuitive aspect of our teachings. Charles is the intellectual part, right, the mental part. He had to prove it to himself. So he was much more deliberate in the way that he worked on his own healing. He wanted to prove, sort of scientifically, as close as he could, that what Myrtle's experience was possible for him and for anybody. So he healed himself. As a child, he was involved in a skating accident, and so for the rest of his life, he had what was described as a withered leg, and he walked with a limp. One leg was shorter than the other, and over the course of many years, he eventually got to a point that he no longer needed a leg brace. I think he probably still did wear, I think the story was he had a lift in his shoe so that the the limp wasn't quite as pronounced, but he truly did experience a healing using these principles of recognizing the truth of who we are and the power that we have by the thoughts that we hold, by the beliefs that we express and articulate. So healing has been a deep part of Unity's teaching since its very beginning, and we want to make sure that as we move forward as a community that we're embodying that as well. So just to give you a couple examples about how that's going to be demonstrating for us at Unity on the North Shore, is we've got an event coming up in May that's kind of an alternative, holistic approach to healing. We have a gentleman coming in and he's doing what's called a sacred sound bath, sanctuary of sound, he calls it. And we'll have it upstairs, and it's a wonderful opportunity to sort of come together and just let the vibrational energies that we call in as a collective and that he does through this beautiful music. So keep an eye out, check out the website. You can register on the app to hear about that later. But one example of, a healing modality that we are bringing community together to embody these beliefs that we hold dear. And then in June, we have another concert coming up, Sean Thompson and the Wild Lotus Band. They were here a year ago. And this is yay, Ruth, back there clapping. I'm not going to describe it right because it's kind of a fusion of a bunch of different styles, but my experience I was once in Turkey and I got to experience whirling dervishes, where it's sort of this wonderful building of energy and sound, and these dancers spin around. It's not quite that. Sean Thompson doesn't quite do the whole dervish thing, but there's this beautiful kind of kirtan music that the band sort of builds, and that there's a lot of dancing that happens. Last year it was up in the aisles and up in front, and it was open to our community, but I don't think we did the right promotion because most of the folks that showed up were from the yoga studio that we're doing this in partnership with. So I really want you all to be aware of it and mark your calendars for June. It really is a beautiful experience and a very talented band, and I think you will leave feeling a real sense of deeper connection and the power that energy has to heal us at a lot of levels. So that's another piece. And then in terms of what we're planning for moving forward, I don't know if you've noticed here, the healing room over here, we refurbished that a few years ago, and ever since then we have had different practitioners conducting different sorts of healing right now. I think now if you want to talk to Dr. Carl, he's conducting chiropractic sessions here. So as we look to where we're going to be moving once the building sale here is complete, we're wanting to make sure that we're creating space for that kind of healing to continue to go on. Yeah? Okay, so that's kind of the embodiment of how we're moving forward to it. I want to talk more now about what we mean in Unity when we talk about healing. Because I think a lot of people have this association that healing equates to illness or sickness, right? It's about sort of a physical manifestation of symptoms. And in Unity, certainly that's a component of it. Charles and Myrtle healed physical manifestations. But the deeper healing that really arises comes really out of a body-mind-spirit connection. So we heal ourselves in terms of the beliefs that we hold that we might somehow be separate or somehow lacking, or that we are not a part of something greater. That sense of separation is probably the deepest kind of healing work that we do together. And it's actually the source out of which, what Myrtle and Charles would have taught, that's the source out of which we experience the physical manifestation, right? Once we get our consciousness in the right spot and we recognize that we are divine life and expression, we are walking around on the planet as these spiritual manifestations of God. We are these spiritual physical manifestations of God. And once we're sort of centered in that and can see beyond the appearance or the particular circumstances that we're seeing, as we start to recognize the deeper truth beyond that and who we truly are, then we're working in this realm, the most powerful realm of healing. So that's kind of what I would talk about now. It's not, when you think about requesting healing prayers or wanting prayers for wholeness, I want you to go much more deeply than imagining that it's something about, oh, my foot's bothering me, or oh, I've got a scrape or a scratch. Certainly divine life is a part of that healing process, but the bigger part of it is knowing the truth of who we are and who we're being. So this week I wanted to, I've been delving into the teachings. It's going to be a weird book. Because the title of it makes me nervous to even share, because in Unity, we're all about affirming the positive. But this is a best-selling author. His name is Gabor Mate, and he's New York Times bestseller. His latest book is called Myth of Normal. It's trauma, illness, and healing in a toxic culture, right? That doesn't sound like very unity speaking, does it? Trauma issue. But his premise is essentially that, that the responses that we're experiencing to some of the craziness that's going on in the world, we have so normalized it that we aren't really capable of recognizing that deeper truth that's underneath it, right? The example he used was, he was being interviewed in a podcast by Dan Harris, who 10% Happier, if you've got that, it's amazing. I love this. I love his work. And he was talking to Dan about, Dan shares the story very widely. He had a, what do you call it when you have a breakdown? Not nervous, whatever it is. He had on air, he was a broadcaster back then, a reporter, and on air, he had a, why can't I think of what it was, how he described it? Panic attack, thank you. On air panic attack, where he just freezes, and there's this just kind of blank look, and it's been all over YouTube, and so Gabor Manta was sort of wanting to give Dan a context for that, right? Dan Harris had traveled the world and was covering war zones and had seen all kinds of crisis, horrible stuff. And so his premise is that that is not sort of normal experience. And the normal response to that kind of tragedy and trauma is probably some sort of PTSD that is going to show up as a panic attack at some point, right? So it's not that there was something wrong with Dan. His response was actually a part of probably a deeper healing process that was going on as a result of all he'd experienced it before. So that sort of gives us a context for the symptoms that we're experiencing now, right? As we normalize those, and what he suggests is let's see, I want to go back. So we talked about sort of the physical manifestations where we heal our bodies like Myrtle and Charles did, right? So that's sort of being in the body. And healing can also involve, like as we heal our thoughts about lack and limitation, it can involve prosperity demonstration. So there's a degree of healing that happens or even in the consciousness that we hold around stuff and money and relationships. So healing can happen at all of those levels. Just want to throw that in there, right? So, there's that physical manifestation, the demonstration of it. Then in terms of this body-mind-spirit connection, what I want to focus on mostly for the rest of my talk here is the mind-spirit, because that's where Mate is really looking as he looks at how we have normalized trauma. So he suggests 4 sort of practices or focuses to deal with this mind stuff, and it's sort of at the emotional level. And he calls it the 4 A's. So the first of the A's that he suggests in terms of being able to shift our thinking into new patterns rather than sort of getting stuck in the pull of the ordinary that sort of pulls us along. The first of those, the word they use is agency. So it's to really demonstrate that we have agency over the conditions of our lives. What he suggests is that sometimes like it can feel almost like, oh, it's being done to me. Like, oh, I've inherited, my family has this history of this in my background. Or, oh, there is this, it's just my bad luck that I happen to come back with a cold. It's just like why is it always me kind of, right? There's a sort of surrendering in a powerlessness way that can sometimes arise out of that kind of experience that we're having. And what he suggests is that by taking agency over those, that we begin to recognize that we actually do have some authority over those conditions, right? Even in the midst of the symptoms that we might be experiencing, there may be choices that we have been making along the way, whether, like the simple example would be that I'm drinking a lot of sugar and caffeine, and now suddenly I'm having this anxiety kind of thing. There are choices that I made that sort of moved into that physical condition. And if we're willing to take agency over that, then I can begin to make different choices. The biblical example that I can think of is, remember the pool of Bethesda? There was the paralytic who was camped out of the pool of Bethesda because that's where all the miracle healings happened. And the idea was once the angels stirred up the waters, the first one down to the pool would be healed. So there's this paralytic who had been coming for years and years and years and years. And then one day Jesus shows up. And the paralytic is having the same, and he goes into that whining, no agency thing, right? Oh, everybody else gets down there before me. Nobody will help me get there. There's that sense of helplessness. And Jesus' instruction is really about agency. Pick up your mat and walk. Like we do have the capacity to change the trajectory of our lives and our healing if we can begin to sort of rise above the victim kinds of mentality that sometimes become so prevalent, yeah? So agency, really recognizing that even in those circumstances, we do have choice and power and authority over how we're going to move through it. We might not have choice about experiencing, the outcomes that we have, but we do have choice about how we move forward as we move through it. So the next A that Mate suggests is acceptance. And this one's interesting for me, and I think for Unity, so I'm going to ask you to think about it and comment to me later. So acceptance is about accepting conditions as they are. The difference is, because what I think why my mind is like baffling right now, because in Unity I'm always saying to you, you can see beyond the conditions, right? There's certain level. So in some ways that's saying don't accept the condition. That's not the final word. So this, I want to give a little bit of nuance around this way in which Mata is using acceptance. So acceptance is about kind of not suppressing what's true and what's real. Right? It might be true that I'm having a headache right now and there's a certain amount of pain that I'm experiencing. That might be true, and to sort of accept that is a much more powerful way to sort of move through and then begin to take agency over the choices I make so that I can relieve it. But if I'm sort of denying that it's even a part of my experience, that sort of frustrates the capacity to really begin to bring a greater sense of self and a power to that experience. The example that he uses, and this is, I'm sorry, Sharon, I know you would like me to be more joyful. It's not a joyful experience. So this is about, if there is a woman, the example that he used was a woman who was in a very abusive kind of situation. And very often we find that in those kinds of circumstances, that there's a lot of denial about the condition that's happening. Right? Oh, he'll be different the next time, or he or she, whoever the perpetrator is. It will be different, or oh, it's not as bad as I think it is, or oh, whatever it is. But so there's a level of acceptance that is important for us to be able to realize as we begin to want to make the kinds of changes that are really going to bring about that sense of healing and wholeness and an awareness of our true identity. So it's not denying in the way that we're suppressing it, but it's recognizing what is, not being sort of caught up in the story of that and being able to move on. Does that make sense? So let's see, the biblical example that I would use is, and I spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, remember the Samaritan woman at the well? And we talked about Jesus having met her, and she was there in the middle of the day when no one else would be there, and Jesus was sort of explaining to her that, or inviting her into drinking of the water with which she would thirst no more. Remember that whole interaction? And the interpretation I found at that point was that Jesus sort of moved in and immediately identified what this woman's deepest wound was. They're talking along, and he tells her, yeah, well, you're not married now, and you've had a bunch of other husbands. And that's probably the space that, in terms of social ostracization, in terms of self-image, that's the place where her deepest wound was. And in order to sort of be able to accept that and acknowledge that, she's then sort of on a whole new trajectory where she can accept the healing waters that Jesus is offering, right? So there's a level of acceptance. No, I'm not an acceptance. Yeah, I'm an acceptance still, aren't I? Yeah. A level of acceptance that's actually beneficial rather than sort of in denial. All right. The third A that Mate suggests is around authenticity. And this one's pretty easy, I think. He suggests that, and it's really about, in Unity, I think we would talk about it in self-care. I know we do that a lot in our chaplain training, that there's a place where we really want to make sure that when we're agreeing to some commitment, that it's an authentic yes. Because very often, many of us, I think, either by social pressure or by fear that we might be rejected or might be ostracized, will end up agreeing to stuff that really isn't in our heart to do. Right? So he's suggesting that as we get really authentic and are able to sort of be present to what, and this takes a whole level of awareness too, to be present to what our needs really are and be able to stand up for those, to stand up in those without fear that we're somehow going to be ostracized or rejected. So a level of sort of authenticity around that. And the biblical story that's coming to mind for that is, you remember the story of Martha and Mary when they go to visit, or Jesus comes to visit them at their home? And Martha is very busy out in the kitchen, very busy, bustling around, getting food ready, And Mary is just sitting and basking at Jesus' feet, sort of in that space of really being fed, right? She was exactly where she wanted to be. And in this story, I always identify more with Martha, or I did. I'm coming to heal that part too. But, it's like that. I start to get bitter or resentful because everybody else isn't doing enough and it's all on me. And, that sort of, she was not there with an authentic yes. She was out in that kitchen because she felt the social obligation to do that. And Jesus' invitation was really, well, it wasn't even an invitation. It was more sort of a coaching, like, your sister's made the better choice here. So look in your heart and what is it that would most benefit you? And I think that's true for all of us, right? As we can be more clear about what we're being called into, what we desire for ourselves, rather than sort of being influenced and maybe even pressured by outside forces. That level of authenticity will move us into a space of emotional wholeness that is about sort of the mind part of the body, mind, spirit equation. So authenticity is the last one. And this one is really going to get you. Anger. The fourth A is anger. And what he suggests, and I like this way of thinking about anger. I'm going to preface it by saying, certainly there are appropriate ways for us to express and sort of move through an experience of anger. Thich Nhat Hanh has a marvelous book that's just named Anger. It's all about sort of holding it and caring for it like you would a crying child, like we're giving ourselves self-compassion and attention. So keep that in mind. That's the background of this. But what Manta says is that anger actually has a purpose for us, and that like our immune system, it's a boundary protector. That when anger arises for us, that it's probably because there's something where we need to be able to set a boundary, right? Someone is encroaching on something that's hurtful, that's painful, and to be able to say, no, 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 is actually a good boundary to be setting. Rather than sort of suppressing and pushing that anger down, when we know that kind of suppression turns into all kinds of different stresses that end up coming out sideways, coming out in terms of illness, or coming out projecting on others. What he's suggesting is that we really find a way to honor anger as it arises. Because in our culture we've sort of, is that even true? As I'm talking about that, I'm thinking about how much anger we experience being projected at us from, opposite sides of the political spectrum. But that's not healthy anger, I think they would say. That's just rage or posturing. That's not a healthy expression or even a healthy acknowledge or awareness of anger. But I think for most of us, there probably is some work that we could do to be able to recognize and to be able to express and deal with our anger in much healthier ways that actually are a part of achieving a greater level of emotional health. And then, let's see. Oh, I missed a quote that I wanted to share with you. That was going to set up the whole body, mind, spirit thing. Okay, it's going to work just fine here. This is from Eric Butterworth. He was one of Unity's most prolific writers, very well known, and he also had a radio program for a lot of the 1970s. So this is from a transcript from one of those radio programs on healing. And I love it, and I think it'll set up our meditation nicely. So he says, this is sort of a quote of like ancient spiritual wisdom. Thou wilt keep him in perfect health, whose mind is stayed on the idea that God is the healing power of nature, that God is ever with him, and in him as the limitless healing and sustaining influence. Right? That's a lot to let me read it again, maybe a little more slowly. And actually imagine that this is pasted on your bathroom mirror at home and you're just sort of contemplating it while you're getting ready. Thou wilt keep him in perfect health, whose mind is stayed on the idea that God is the healing power of nature, that God is ever with him and in him as the limitless healing and sustaining influence. And then he writes, you see, life is the gift of the infinite to you. You can't get away from it. It has hold of you, and it will never let you go. Don't you love that? Divine life is a force within that is actually a part of our identity. Life itself is whole, complete, perfect. Life never gets sick or tired. But you can mobilize and use this gift of life in the way you choose. If you think you are weak and sickly, then that is the way you will draw upon and use this quality of life. You live in a world of your own making. Much depends on what you give your mind to think about. So I would suggest that what we're aiming for as we focus this week on sort of this capacity for healing and what we want to do in terms of using our minds well is to recognize, first practice awareness, be whatever that is for you. If it starts out in the morning with some good meditation so that you can move through the day in a state that's more present and grounded, then do that, commit to that. And then just watch for places where you might be giving up your power, where you're not using the agency that you have to make choices, where you're being drawn along by the dynamic or by the momentum of what's going around you. Just remember that agency is yours and that's a huge capacity for emotional healing. And then acceptance, to be able to, from an objective space, just almost like a reporter giving the details of a story, it sort of adjusts the facts. These are the circumstances in which I am. Not putting any of their story around it, just an acceptance of the way things are. And then next, be able to authentically respond. If there's something rising up in you that just says, no, I don't want to do it, or okay, yeah, I will, fine, then that's a huge signal. So make sure that what you're agreeing to, that how you want to move through life is coming from authentic yes, or authentic no, I guess, for that matter, authentic either way. And then lastly, that if you find yourself in a space where your boundaries are being pushed and a little frustration or anger arises, kind of bless that, hold that, and don't suppress it, don't push it down, just recognize that, wow, this is an opportunity for me to stand in a space of greater emotional health. This is the way that I align what's going on in my body with what's in my mind and my thinking. And now, what I'd like to do is prepare for a time of meditation, and maybe we'll move into more of an experience of this at the spiritual dimension and level. Okay, I don't know exactly what this means. Oh, I'm supposed to tell the live stream people. Okay, we need to do something with power, and so live stream, the mics are going to go quiet for just a minute while we get that power recycled.
Do that now?
Yeah. Thank you. You guys are awesome at being able to walk us through these technical stuff. It really is. So appreciate that. That could be instead of the...
I don't think we have a microphone just yet, do we? Is this on here? Oh, it's working. Take my mind and take my pain, like an empty bottle takes the rain, and heal, 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 heal. Take my past and take my sins, like an empty sail takes the wind, and heal, 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 heal.
So into this beautiful invitation, I would like you to begin by focusing your attention on your breathing. No need to manipulate it, just notice. And as you exhale, just think empty, empty, empty. As you release any busyness of mind, any thought of lack or discomfort or disease, any tension, anything that doesn't serve, just as you exhale, empty, empty, empty. And then as you now shift attention and recognize on your inhale that you're inhaling vitality and renewal and strength. Inhale wholeness, the very essence of life. So it's inhale fullness, wholeness. Exhale, empty and release. Inhale, fullness, wholeness, divinity. Exhale, empty and allow. It's into this beautiful flow that we can recognize our truest nature, that we are one with that flow, all that is good, and that we release what's no longer needed with each and every exhale. We are expressions of infinite divine life. It is the very essence of who we are. And as we breathe it in, cognizant of that very truth, we remember that there is nothing in this worldly realm that can block us from the power of life to express fully with beauty, with joy, with wholeness, with healing. Those are the capacities that we were born not only to experience, but also to express. As we center ourselves in this truth of being as agents of life, and we actually become points at which that life expresses more fully within us, to those around us, to all that is. So now as we prepare to rest in just a little bit of quiet, I invite you back to the initial invitation. On each inhale, recognize vitality, renewal. With each exhale, empty and open. Continue inhaling and exhaling, and allow Spirit to do its mighty work of divine flow of love in the quiet. And so now, as we begin to bring this time of meditation to a close, we give thanks. Thank you, God, for each breath, for our awareness of life unfolding, for our awareness of the power we experience and express through this beautiful body, mind, spirit connection that can never be separate from all that is, from infinite love. So it is, and so we let it be. Amen.
Take my mind and take my pain, like an empty bottle takes the rain, and heal, 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 heal. Take my past and take my sins, like an empty sail takes the wind, and heal, 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 heal.
Kathy, are you gonna, yeah.
Hi, I'm Kathy Mathis. I'm the board treasurer for anyone who doesn't know me. Wow, after hearing that, I'm in such a lovely mood. I guess it takes us to a mood of healing and knowing the prosperity and the love that we have in our community here. And so as we think about that, as we look at our finances for the first quarter of the year, we do want to encourage people to look inside and give to your source of spiritual growth and your spiritual family here, as we are reliant on everyone's gifts. We don't have a corporate group that gives us money or anything. We are all self-sufficient here, and our giving is down about 12,000 versus our plan. And so if you look in your heart and you find it there to give generously to our community, we'll be grateful. And we create our community together here through our own gifts and our own participation. So thank you all.
Thank you, Kathy. And following that, it is now time for our service where we share our love offerings. We offer in 3 simple ways to give. First, you can text. You can use the donate button on our website or send checks through the mail. The details for all three should be up on the screen, I believe. Hopefully they will be. Of course, those of you who are in the room can place your cash or checks in the bowl near the door as you leave. More important than how to give is why we give. So here are 3 reasons why giving is important for your spiritual growth and well-being. 1, it places spirit at the center of our flow of prosperity. 2nd, it reminds us that God is the source of all our good. And the 3rd, it opens new channels of supply. And one bonus reason, because we know you're listening closely, it strengthens our faith and raises consciousness as nothing else does. So now, let's bless our giving and receiving. And if you're not actually giving in this exact moment, I invite you to set an intention now as we speak aloud our offertory blessing. With the joy and gratitude, we affirm divine love as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And so it is. Amen. Please stand while we sing our offertory song.
I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful, I am so blessed.
And we are blessed for many reasons. I want to thank our musicians, our live stream team, and each and every one of you. Your presence has blessed us here this morning. Okay, I have some announcements, so you can sit down. Grateful Voices Choir is rehearsing here in the Garden Room Monday evenings from 7 to 9 p.m. Their debut performance is at our Sunday, May 21st service. If you love to sing, come and join them. Just be here at 7 p.m. If you have questions, talk to Gene Scott or Carl. Carl, Gene, could you hold up your hand so people, thank you. On Saturday, May 6th at 7 p.m., we're co-hosting a powerful healing experience. It's called Sanctuary Sound Meditation and Sound Healing. Reverend Kurt just spoke of it. You can register on the Unity website or using our app. And if you don't have the Unity North Shore app yet, I invite you to take out your mobile device and point your camera at the QR code on the screen. Then just follow the prompts to install it. This experience will focus on abundance and love, sending positive vibes to center us in joyful being. No meditation experience is necessary. If you have a yoga mat, bring it along with a blanket and pillow, and dress comfortably. And lastly, the other event Reverend Kurt mentioned, Sean Thomas and the Wild Lotus Band will be here Friday, June 2nd. If you were here last year, you know what a wonderful time that was. I strongly urge you to try and be here for that. We're expecting a great turnout, so this concert will be upstairs in the sanctuary. It's an amazing band, great vibes. Search Sean Thompson Wild Lotus to sample their music. Invite friends, buy tickets on our website or on the UNS app. That's it this morning. And now Cal and Danny will lead us in the peace song, and then Sharon will lead our closing prayer for protection.
Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be with God as creator, family all are we.
Thank you, everybody. In that spirit of health and healing, can you please join me for our prayer of protection? The words are on the screen, and you can start now. The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is, and I am divine. Enjoy a wonderful week, everyone. Thank you.